Hey, welcome back to Music Explorer. We're here today with Chuck Conrad. He is a guitar craftsman who got his start in studio carpentry. He's worked at legendary studios such as Sunset Studios and Chalice. Chuck recently has dived into making his own custom guitars and has a vast knowledge of wood and guitar tone. He discusses why his guitars are different than any others and about making a guitar for the latest blues sensation, Christone Ingram, also known as Kingfish, when Christone was just 17. So, Chuck, how you doing today?
Good, man. Everything's great.
You got quite a background with making guitars. I mean, you got a history with this. So, as a craftsman, why don't you give us some history on yourself and how you got into making guitars?
I got my first guitars at 4 years old. Remember, I got my first electric for $2. And it was change I got around the house, out of the ashtrays, out of the couch. I took it apart, sprayed it all with copper paint, sprayed my Kiss platform shoes with chrome bumper repair paint, and I had my first custom. And then later I went to Flamin Harry, is a local Philly legend, and he opened for everybody from Johnny Hooker to Buddy Guy to Johnny Winter to Albert Collins, and I was his roadie. And I could play back then, but he was really established. So, and I went on tour. Our first big gig was Albert Collins, but I met Coco Taylor and Buddy Guy and the blues guys. Like our first gig with Albert Collins, but he was the nicest, warmest, most genuine guy. So he changed my life overnight to really push me towards the blues. And then later, I ended up a carpenter after that. I left that band thinking I was going to be a rock star, and a month later they got the gig open up for Thorogood at the Philadelphia Spectrum, and I cried like a baby. So I packed my bags and I went to GIT, and I went out to Hollywood. And where my studio carpentry stuff started, they were just starting the recording engineering program over there. They were developing it, and I worked on the studios there. And I worked. Sunset Sound was my home away from home. Those are the nicest people in the business. And when I walked into Sunset Sound, they bought the building in 1958. Ben Harper was in there, man. It was when I walked in, and it was the most amazing place. And T-Bone Burnett was that was his big room. We needed to update the room, yet keep the character of the room.
Yep.
I built a place called Chalice from the ground up. And Chalice is now a who's who. They're almost a dinosaur. I had a fairly storied career there for a good 10 years. I was a studio carpenter. It's been decades in the making. This endeavor to make these particular guitars is about 5 years in the making. Between tooling up and perfecting the designs and really getting them to do what I want them to do. It's been about a 5-year endeavor. And my idea was, the telly, the horn comes up here, and I got big fat hands and I couldn't play the upper frets. So what this design basically is the Django Reinhardt Selmer shape. The old Django Reinhardt Selmer Manouche, the Gypsy Jazz guitars. So I wanted to do a Telecaster size Manouche where I could play all the frets. A lot of the Ibanez guitars and things had jumbo frets, and I liked that. I scalloped a bunch of necks when I was younger, and I don't really care for the scallop neck so much, but I do put the jumbo frets. And my guitars have generally a 12-inch Gibson radius. Why would I want a guitar where I can't play the whole thing?
Right. Yeah.
Explanation thereof. The idea was to do those bodies, but I also played like Gretsch 6120s over the years, like the big hollow bodies. And Gretsch's you can crank up in front of an amp, but a lot of the hollow body guitars that I love the tone of, you can't get in front of an amp with because they squeal and feed back and everything. So I have to generally muscle them around. So I wanted to build a Telecaster size guitar that behaved like a hollow body, but that you could get in front of an amp and not squeal but sing. And that was quite an endeavor, to be able to either set the headstock right on the amp and just let the thing sing, or to be able to stand in the sweet spot and have notes ring until you don't want to play them anymore. But what I learned is that a lot of the softer woods, like some of the first ones I built out of maple and mahogany, and I'll show them to you, because that's so traditional to a Les Paul. But they're such a hard wood that they'll ring at this high frequency, different high frequency pitches when you get right next to the amp, when you make a hollow body out of it. So I end up, and I studied about Janka hardness scales, which is the hardness of the wood. And I looked at all these woods through history, and I have quite a wood library downstairs that I've been building over the last 6 years.
Yeah.
My whole paycheck goes to hardwood, you know. This is the first barn burner. And that's an $8 piece of 2x8 from Lowe's.
Really?
$8 2x8 with TV Jones, and it's got the Duesenberg Les Trem. And these Les Trems work like a Bigsby, but they're so much easier. And a Warmouth roasted maple neck. But what this thing is almost full hollow, and you can hold it in front of the amp and crank it all the way up, and it'll sing all day.
Really?
The next one that I did, these are also Tim McNally Filtertrons. They're called Sparkletrons. This has a Wenge neck. This has a little too much wood inside. So as I went, I got better and better at finding that happy medium where I could get the amp that thinks to really sing as opposed to either or squeal like a hollow body. And I also didn't want it to sound like a solid body.
How many guitars did it take for you to make the right one, to get to the right tone?
At least 5 or 6. And again, I'll take the core wood and I'll tap it out and I'll look at and the whatever wood is selected for the tops. But the construction has most to do with it, and the electronics. Of course, then your amp, you know, it's a different animal than making a full hollow body acoustic guitar.
How many body styles do you have? And neck styles?
Right now, well, the neck I can pretty much do whatever you want. I have every StewMac scale length template they make. This is American chestnut from a barn that was torn down near me. That's why it's one of the barn burners. But American chestnut went extinct around 1910. It was the #1 construction material in the United States, but some kind of a beetle took it over and wiped it out, plus over harvesting. Wow. So this is getting curly maple around the edges. And all. The one I have the most of done is the one that Kingfish is playing.
Tom, but go back up a little bit. So how did you hook up with Kingfish?
Well, I found Kingfish on YouTube, and I was a big fan of Michael Burks, and I don't even remember him, but he died young in his 50s. And he was the only guy to come along that really had that magic that like Stevie Ray Vaughan had or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I found Kingfish at 17 years old on YouTube playing a Michael Burks tune and nailed it to the wall in a bar. And he was just a young kid. So I friended him on Facebook. 22 when he played my first guitar at his birthday bash a couple years ago, the first one I built for him. So I was just designing these when he was 17. And I built the first couple, and I had put up a couple videos, and I said, man, I'd really love to build Kingfish one. And he chimed in and said, yeah, man, that'd be great. So I got too busy at work to do it. Thanks to COVID, I got laid off. I built him the black one. And I don't know if you've seen the black one, but he's got a black one and a green one now. And his first post-COVID show was in Camden, New Jersey. There's a big amphitheater there. He's got an endorsement with Fender, and on his 662 album cover, there's that purple custom shop Strat. He played my guitar that entire show, and that custom shop Strat sat on the stand. And my eyes almost fell out of my head, you know. So I couldn't believe it.
That's a statement.
So, unreal. And then he asked me to build him another one. And actually, and I keep showing you the Sunburst, he saw this one. And he said, I want one just like that, but in green. So here, all about Chris goes all the way back to the roots of the Delta blues. And then all the way through, he's a big fan of Muddy Waters and the migration up to Chicago and, you know, all the great players that came from the Delta. So he's really a piece of American blues history at a very young age. I couldn't do major marketing until I had tooling together to really actually put out the product. So the marketing thing, I couldn't start marketing the guitars until I could produce them consistently.
I mean, it seems like you got a lot of differences than any other guitar shop would have, you know, I mean, so what do you think is a standout for you that separates you from everybody else?
It's the neck and the body design. It's the design that I mentioned. They're very comfortable for a Gibson or a Fender player. With the big frets, you can really do bends and stretches like you couldn't do with a vintage fret. Like the wider heel enables enables more playing up at the high end. The fact that I have the cutaway allows you to play the whole neck and even reach up and catch upper harmonics without a lot of strain. The bodies are designed to sing and not squeal, but these are much more, they feel more like a hollow body, but they play like a great telly with a Gibson radius, which I prefer. There's a lot of ingredients through a lot of guitars over the years that went into these, and personally I keep the electronics simple. I prefer to use a one-piece body. I mean, I have two-piece body too, but the big manufacturers can't, you know, the bigger the billet, the more money you're paying for it. A one-piece body, I think, resonates more uniformly. This is another piece of 1,000-year-old redwood. This is curly redwood all the way through. It's 2 inches thick, and It's got curl all the way through it. And I can get 2 guitars out of it. It was a coffee table I found.
Nice. So what are your next goals? You know, now that you've got pretty much an inventory on hand.
You know, I wasn't getting any orders, and so I was just building an inventory. You know, I was putting the product at the front of the, you know, front of the cart, not the cart before the horse, but you know, at this point now I actually have product. I've got really nice stuff to show. I've got some stuff out there. My real goal is to take a bunch of these guitars and probably, maybe next year, start hitting the Pittsburgh Guitar Show, the Philly Guitar Show, the smaller guitar shows, and then work my way up to the NAMM show if needed. So, better or worse, you know.
Yep. Well, Chuck, man, it's been great talking with you today. I mean, we got to say your guitars are art.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's a labor of love.
All right, man. Have a good day.
You too. Take care. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.